Okay, some of you are asking how to mix drums, specifically for Midwest emo. So we're gonna do that. Fortunately, the last session I did, the last video, is just crashing. So instead, I got this little loop from Looperman. We're gonna do it in three ways. We're gonna do it with Superior Drummer, which is what I would normally use, but it's expensive, so we're gonna do it with SSD, which is cheaper. It's also very good. And then we're gonna do it for free or cheap, depending on what samples you have, because I'm gonna do it with just samples I downloaded. So that way, there's like 3 levels of production that anyone can do. But let's start with Superior Drummer. Now, for all my drums, I use this. It's a 𝗕𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗘 MPD218. It's very good. So I'm just gonna quickly do a beat. This isn't gonna be a performing drums tutorial. Hopefully, you already know what kind of drum beat you want. So I'm just gonna play a beat and then we'll mix it. Okay, I did my shitty performance. It's not great, but I'm gonna quantize it and then it'll be great enough. So the first thing I do is I'd find my drum sounds. Usually I'd start with this just initial preset on Superior Drummer, and then I'll find some better snare, some better kick that I like. Although it kind of sounds good, I'm not gonna lie. I like that snare. That sounds pretty good. Let's check the ride. I like that too. Now let's check our quantize, because clearly something's off. Superior Drummer is really good for raw drum sounds, which works pretty well in this style of music. All right, let's get some ambience in there. With the core library of Superior Drummer, you're able to add a lot more bleed and a lot more ambience layers here. So I'm going to choose, I think I'm just going to go for the ambience mid. I'm going to enable the bleed, and that'll let every single drum hit bleed into that ambience mic. So that's what it sounds like. I think there's a little too much hi-hat. A lot of low end. What is going on? Let's get the front, left, and right in there too. Gonna copy the same EQ over. Now you have to be careful. EQing might give it some phase issues. I normally don't even EQ these layers, but there's a lot of hi-hat in here. It might just be the hi-hat. Let's go back and switch it to hi-hat. That sounds good. Now we'll level up the drums. Usually I like a lot more snare bottom. Next thing I do is I throw like an 1176 type of compressor on there. I would normally use this. In fact, it works pretty well. But I just recently got access to some of the Arturia stuff, so I'm going to switch to that 1176 and see how that sounds. I like a fast attack and a fast release. Gives that distortion, has that kind of pumpy feely type of thing. It's very like Travis Barker-esque. I like my modern pop punk. All right, quick lesson. Transients are the spikes, the quick spikes of audio. Okay, so if you want the transients to come through, aka the attack of the kick, the attack of the drum hit, you want to lower the attack on your compression. That means the transient's going to go through, then the compressor's going to start, instead of it starting almost immediately, as fast as it could possibly start, which for an 1176 is very fast. So I'm going to ease off on the attack so that I can get those transients through. And you can go for a super overly compressed sound. I do like that a lot too. Something like that. Might be your thing. Might want to try that in the chorus. Right now, this is a bit of a of a laid back sort of guitar riff. So I think there's a little bit too much attack in the kick. Yeah. So now that you've learned your attack theory, I'm going to throw a 76 on there. I'm going to put a very fast attack. On the regular 76 emulations clones, on the actual 1176, fast is actually this way, slow is this way. So it's the reverse from this little plugin here, but whatever. Meaning 7 on a regular 76 is fast. Cool. Okay, we do have some ambience. I do want to add some reverb now, though. Usually I'd use like a Valhalla room. Those are very good. A true verb. True verb is really good for rooms. R verb is very good for rooms. Let's just use R verb. So instead of putting the actual reverb on the layer, we're gonna make a send. That way you can send the full dry signal to that send, and then that will make it a reverb. As opposed to putting like the reverb on the channel and using the dry wet knob, because that way you're actually losing dry and adding wet, instead of just having dry and having wet. Does that make sense? And we'll make sure it's 100% wet. I'm gonna EQ it a little bit because I know I don't want that much low end, especially around like the 100 mark. It's pretty boxy, boomy. So let's just get a quick room setting, and we'll solo the drums, send it to the reverb. See, I still think that's a little too long. Something like that. So that's before. This is after. Let's see how it sounds in the mix. Get that diffusion up. Make the size of the room a little smaller. Another thing I like to do is throw fresh air on the drums. Not often, but sometimes it really works if iLok registers. All right, so of course iLok crashed. Ableton, what's new? I fucking hate iLok. If you want a fatter kick, which I tend to do want, you can use something like RBass, or you can use a 𝗠𝗘𝗢𝗠𝗕𝗥 style EQ. They don't do the same thing, but they kind of do the same thing. So I'm going to throw RBass on. It'll make the kick much thumpier. I'm going to focus the frequency around 60. It's all up to your own ears, though. There you go. I think that sounds pretty good. I think that's good for our superior drummer exercise there. I'm going to freeze and flatten this so we can compare later. Okay, next up is SSD 5.5. It's pretty good. Works. It works when superior drummer doesn't. The hardest part is deciding which kit you want to use. I'm going to try and just go for some indie one, I guess. Let's do an indie style thing. That's pretty good. Cool. First step, I can notice I want a lot more high end, so I'm going to throw in a 𝗠𝗘𝗢𝗠𝗕 style EQ on there. I could use fresh air if Ableton didn't crash anytime I wanted to use anything related to iLok. Let's put a 𝗠𝗘𝗢𝗠𝗕 style EQ on. This is from Noise Ash. It's called the Rule Tech. It's very good. I'm going to boost the high end. Also going to boost the low end around 60 and attenuate at the same time. It's called the 𝗠𝗘𝗢𝗠𝗕 trick. Look it up. It's used quite often. So without that EQ, it sounds like this. Boring. Cool. Let's bring up the ambience a little bit. We're basically following the same process. I'm going to send it to our room reverb. Next thing is our compression. For this, I'm going to use the 76, CLA 76. It's just a different 76 plugin. See how it kind of feels like it's whoom, 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 whoom. You'll actually notice it more if we switch to the bluey revision. Right? So anyway, for subtle compression, I like to stay around like 1 to 3 dB of gain reduction. If you want that super wishy-washy, over-compressed sound, no guidelines. No guidelines in general, but I'm going to give you guidelines. And that's that. Easy. Freeze that track, flatten that track. We got one more version of this. It's just using samples. I'm going to use one of the Matchler sample libraries because they sound very good, and advertising. You can get them on Patreon if you want to get them for free. If you want to pay full price, you can get them with the link in the description on the Beat Store. Now with drum racks, you can do a very cool velocity thing where the different velocities that you play on your little drum pad trigger different samples. So let's show you how to do that. So first choose the sample you want to affect, and then you're going to group it, and you're going to throw all your kicks in there. So let's do kick 1 to kick 15. Throw them all in there. Cool. Kick.4 I'm just going to get rid of. And I'm going to open the velocity, and we're going to right click and distribute them equally. So now, depending on different velocities, it's going to play different samples. The only issue with this is you now have to go through and adjust the attack time of all of them. So you're just going to click this, go to release, and just make it longer. All right, there's a little drum beat. Gonna throw a little pull tag on there. Gonna send it to the room reverb. Now for this, I'm gonna add a little bit of saturation. Just feeling it. And then, because samples don't come up with a lot of room, or ambience, that sort of stuff, I'm gonna have a room reverb and then I'm gonna have a long reverb. So let's send it to the long reverb. This is not working at the moment. So we're gonna use Valhalla Vintage Verb, one of the greatest plugins of all time. I'm gonna do a low cut and a high cut. This is much cleaner. We can again add our compression. And there we go. So 3 different vibes, 3 different qualities. Our sample kit will be pretty realistic. We didn't do a ton of processing to it. There's a time and place for all these different techniques and sample packs and plugins. I find Superior Drummer is the most universal. I can pretty much use it anytime. SSD I'd use when I don't need the drum sounds to be realistic, something with a more poppy production. And the Kev kit is a very unprocessed sample pack, so you can process it however you like. I think there's just a little bit of compression on the samples, and that's pretty much it. So you got a lot of options. I hope you learned something. I hope this was useful. And yeah, check out the Patreon if you want. There's beats in advance. There's going to be sample packs. There's going to be the plugins I'm working on. They're going to be up there. So yeah, have fun with that. Bye-bye.